from Pop Culture with Pat, here with Patrick Ball, talking about the Pitt where he plays Dr. Langdon.
Hey,
Great to meet
Pat.
you, Patrick, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. So, to start things off, I wanted to ask you about, I know that you come from a background in theater. So, how do you think that background helped get you ready for a series like The Pitt?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that you learn on stage in front of a live audience, especially if you're lucky enough to sort of run have a good through line in a play. Like I was lucky to do a lot of really great plays where you get the practice of building a character arc over a period of time and how to sort of uh, you know how to create a stasis and then have a series of events happen and then sort of release information about this character in sort of like a tiered fashion that creates a dramatic change, and that's something that felt you know very happy to get to do for 10 years on stage, and now about to go back and do it again on stage.
That must be pretty exciting to get to be able to go back to that where you've been doing that for a while, but now you did the role on The Pitt to go back to that for a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm working on Hamlet right now. I'm gonna be playing Hamlet next up. So
Oh, that's same, pretty exciting.
yeah, yeah. So feeling very full and very blessed.
So, speaking of the pit, on this first season, we get to see a lot of these doctors, their very first shift, and obviously it's pretty eventful with all the different things that happens. Have you thought about when bringing this character to life of Dr. Langdon, have you thought about what his first shift might have looked like and who does he relate to out of all these new doctors that are kind of coming in this first season, most when he first started?
Yeah. What did my first day look like? Yeah. I think realistically it probably looked a lot like Santos's first day. I think Langdon, whether consciously or unconsciously, really comes in and feels like he has something to prove. And so I think he probably came in a bit out over his skis. So yeah, I would say probably him and Santos entered in very similar ways.
Which is interesting just to kind of see how their storyline has played out this first season. And you've mentioned that both Dr. Langdon he kind of looks up to Robby as both a brother and a mentor. How were you able to connect with him, and why do you think that they kind of have that relationship? I mean, because we meet them, they've already been working together for a little while, so we haven't really gotten to explore that the earlier stages of their relationship.
Well, I think it's sort of, it's almost like brothers in arms. This is a workplace where you go through things that people outside of this workplace can't understand. Like, even, I got a wife and two kids at home, and it can be very difficult for people that aren't in this ER, to understand what it feels like to lose people, what it feels like to, maybe wonder if you made the wrong call. Uh, and I think Robby and Langdon have been going through this together for a number of years and are therefore somewhat aware of what the other is carrying. And I also think he looks up to Robby just a ton. I think Robby's um, compassion and Robby's groundedness and Robby's fortitude is something that Langdon aspires to, and I think tries to emulate, but hasn't. It's a suit he hasn't quite grown into yet, but it's something that he looks up to a lot.
Which must be incredibly hard for him to see Robby going through what he's going through in this latest episode, episode 13, where you see a couple shots of Langdon looking at him, and I think you can tell that he understands that obviously just, I mean, with having stepson there, that something's going on. So that must be just be killing him inside to see him kind of going through that in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's Yeah, it was like John Steinbeck in East of Eden talks about like whenever you realize that your parents are human, it's like watching the gods fall from the sky. And I think to a certain extent, it's a bit like that. It's like here's a guy who always has the answers and is always strong for everyone. It's strong for me, and if he, and I see him uh, meet his limit and really take on water, and that's really heartbreaking to see. So yeah, I think there's an incredible amount of empathy there, and I think Langdon really wishes that there was something that he could do to help.
And I've gotten a chance to speak to a couple other your cast members. One of my favorite relationships on this first season, I got to speak with Taylor, and she was just talking about how she thinks Dr. Langdon, he loves being a teacher. In your opinion, why do you think that's something that he's so passionate about wanting to teach others?
That I don't know if that's true. I think when you pick up when you pick up in at the beginning of the season, um, Robby is the one, I think in episode 4 or 5, that recommends me for this teaching fellowship. Which I think is a fairly bittersweet compliment that he gives him, because I think Langdon likes doing. And that is something that I was interested in from the beginning, is the difference between um, mindset from labor to management. In that, um, I think Langdon likes locking in and doing his thing and being like, I'm really good at doing my thing. I keep my side of the street clean, and as long as I do my job, I can do my job well. And I think part of what Robby encourages him to do in the introduction of this fellowship, and a number of asides that he gives to Langdon throughout the season, is like, no, this is what it means to be a teacher. This is what it means to be a leader. And that might be different than what you've been doing whenever you're just taking care of what you're responsible for. Now you need to be aware of what others need.
And what was it like to, you talk about he loves to do and take action. What was it like to explore that the other aspect of him, or where he kind of becomes the student with Mel, where she has that patient dealing with the ankle injury, and he's kind of able to learn something from her, and they had that conversation afterwards where he just says, "Oh, you really made a good impression today." What was it like to kind of explore that other side of him?
Uh, yeah, I think um, Langdon can be pretty brash, can be pretty headstrong, and a bit like hyper focused, like a bit like, this is how I do things, and as long as I stay locked in right here, I have a pretty good grasp on what I'm doing. And then in trying to zoom out a little bit, he realizes, oh, there's this mode of communication over here that I don't feel super comfortable in. I don't quite know how to do. Um, and I think in that scene it's great because he sees that, oh wow, like this patient needs a mode of communication that Mel understands. And I can sort of step back and 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 see that and watch that. And I think it's yeah, I think it's an unexpected moment for him, and I think it's really cool, and I think it probably leads him down a path of learning.
Yeah, I love those little moments between the characters, and that dynamic between those two is definitely one of the highlights of season one for me. I was reading another interview where you had talked about, just regarding playing Langdon's addiction, you wanted to play it as close to real life as possible. Can you just talk about what was kind of key for you to be able to do that?
Um, I think the key to be able to keep it as close to real life as possible.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think a lot of times whenever you see addiction portrayed on television or in movies or whatever, I think it can be really apparent, sort of like suffering Olympics. And I I have quite a few addicts in my life, and from my experience, the last thing that they want to tell you about, the last thing that they want to display is that they are not in control. And so I think that need to be in control, that need to be okay, or that need to be fine, um, is is really core to what I've observed of people that are really battling with themselves, and the drug becomes a mechanism of control. It becomes a mechanism of suppression. And the true chaos is what happens when you don't have it. And so that's sort of the experience that I was trying to track.
Yeah, I mean, you did a great work. And I know you mentioned in other interviews too, just like little parts you go back and rewatch the season, and I've done that going back, watching all the episodes, and there's like little hints that you can pick up on that's to come later on in the season, which is always fun to kind of go back and watch that as a fan. Uh, One of the main storylines, obviously, is with Dr. Langdon's addiction, with Dr. Santos, and just how that kind of plays out over the season, coming to a head where Dr. Langdon ends up getting let go. Can you just talk about collaborating with Isa on that, and what do you think that relationship might look like with those two if Langdon ends up coming back and working at the hospital after that?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, Issa is amazing. Issa's a good friend. She had dinner with me and my girlfriend the other night. I love Issa and I love working with her. She's also from the theater, and so I think there is a shared language in there, in being able to come in, and both of us coming in and being like, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out in real time. And she was a pleasure to work with. And uh, it, as far as what the relationship is going to look like between Langdon and Santos moving forward, I'd say it's probably going to be pretty fraught. It's probably
Yeah.
going to be pretty fraught. Um, I think I don't know what the writers have in store for season two. I'm as eager as you are to know, as far as um, how how much introspection and self-reflection Langdon is going to do after this event. But I also know that yeah, like Santo, the conflict is very naked now. It's been addressed, and I have potentially lost my job and career and my life as I know it. And so, yeah, that's gonna be a big old skeleton in the closet.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to explore in season two for sure. But Patrick, I got to wrap up here, but I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful getting to meet you, getting to talk to you. And yeah, I can't wait to see what we got next in these last couple episodes.
Cool. Thanks, Pat.